Carlos Alcaraz employs a three-part system to outplay opponents who are technically superior, physically dominant, and far more seasoned than he is. It's known as SVC, and once you grasp it, you'll see countless incredible qualities in Alcaraz. But if one single trait stands taller than the rest, it is what a phenomenal competitor he is. The mind-blowing secret about Carlos Alcaraz that confirms he will demolish Novak Djokovic's untouchable record. Welcome again to Champions Tennisics, where we deliver the most fiery opinions and the most undeniable facts in tennis. If you believe you have the future of men's tennis all figured out, you might want to get comfortable, hold on tight, and perhaps pour a strong drink. You can see 1,000 different strengths in Alcaraz's game, but his greatest asset is his fierce drive to win and knack for finding a way out of the toughest spots, a fact highlighted when Rick Macci, the legendary coach who shaped Serena Williams, Andy Roddick, and Maria Sharapova into global superstars, posted a huge insight online this week that almost the entire tennis community simply missed. But we didn't. We saw it, we broke it down, and the truth we uncovered beneath that casual-looking post is absolutely staggering. Macci stated clearly that our reigning world number one Carlos Alcaraz wields a weapon so exceptional, so profoundly rare throughout the entire celebrated and storied history of this game. Not one of the all-time greats who ever played has ever truly and completely had it. Are you prepared to hear what he revealed? You came up through the Rafa Nadal Academy. What do you recall from your first time hitting balls with Rafa Nadal? The first time I was on court with Rafa, I was 14, and we were just practicing. We played for a 2-hour session. Macci stated Alcaraz's single best surface is just whatever court he's playing on that day. Now I know precisely what you're thinking. That seems like a nice little platitude, a sweet compliment meant to rack up a few thousand shares before the news cycle moves on. But that single statement is worthy of far more than a quick like and a brief glance. What I'm about to lay out for you today is the underdog truth that almost no one in mainstream sports media is covering with any genuine substance or gravity. This is the big time. The undeniable reason the Spanish phenom is launching himself into a stratosphere that only the most elite human beings in this sport have ever reached. And it's why his uncanny ability to perform at the highest possible level on every single court surface in this sport is what will make him a double-digit major champion who will be right on the heels of Novak Djokovic's seemingly unbeatable all-time record. Barring a devastating injury, we are looking at the man poised to rewrite the history books in front of our very eyes. So, get yourself a drink, smash that like button this instant, and let's thoroughly investigate why Rick Macci's low-key observation is the most frightening development possible for every other competitor on the ATP Tour. Macci is 100% unequivocally right, yet the complete unvarnished case for why he's correct is immensely more compelling and dramatically more detailed than a single social media update could ever convey. The term rare is shouldering a massive burden in his analysis. And it's absolutely essential that we dissect what that word actually signifies within the harsh and unforgiving world of professional tennis. Because when you review the history and follow this idea through the careers of the four men who preceded Alcaraz as career Grand Slam champions, the proof becomes so genuinely and remarkably compelling it should make you pause. Consider their ages very carefully. Roger Federer finished his career Grand Slam at 27 years old. Rafael Nadal managed it at 24. Novak Djokovic, the sport's ultimate Goliath, didn't achieve that goal until he was 29. And then you have Carlos Alcaraz. The young man from Murcia completed his career Grand Slam at the Australian Open in Melbourne this past February at the utterly stunning age of 22 years and 272 days. Those four figures set side by side form the bedrock of this whole argument and the launching point for all that comes next. But his young age by itself doesn't paint the entire picture. It fails to convey what makes Alcaraz's achievement structurally and fundamentally unlike the giants who came before him. To understand that, you must examine precisely why each of those three incredible legends required as much time as they did to win all four major championships. Let's begin with the Swiss maestro. Federer's obvious hole was Roland Garros. But if we're being completely honest, his challenge wasn't really the red clay itself. His challenge was a specific person named Rafael Nadal. This was an issue so persistent, so disheartening, and so foundational that Federer lost 3 straight French Open finals to the very same man before he finally hoisted the Champions Trophy in 2009 at the age of 27. When Federer played on clay, the surface itself didn't uncover a major technical flaw in his masterful game. Rather, it uncovered a devastating tactical one. He was a brilliant clay court player. He just wasn't brilliant enough to overcome the punishing high spin and merciless style of clay tennis that Nadal had essentially engineered in a secret lab. Roland Garros became the place where that particular matchup from hell was most intensely and painfully demonstrated. The clay deficit in Federer's resume was undeniable, but in many profound ways, it was a Rafa issue posing as a surface issue. His delayed completion of the career Grand Slam was a direct reflection of the incredible historical misfortune of playing against the single greatest clay court player in history at the exact time when both men were at the absolute zenith of their physical and competitive prowess. Now, when you consider Nadal, his particular gap was a completely different story. From the very beginning, Rafa was a master of the clay court. It's practically in his blood. While that surface launched him into global superstardom, the others were the final hurdles he had to conquer for the career Grand Slam. For him, a victory on the dirt was completely second nature, just like breathing. To win on the slick, low-bouncing grass at Wimbledon, however, he had to endure a painful and total overhaul of his entire game. And succeeding on the punishing hard courts of the US Open meant keeping up an intensely aggressive level for 2 brutal weeks on a surface that hammered his body in a way soft clay never did. So when Nadal finally secured his career Grand Slam at the 2010 US Open at 24, it marked the end of a multi-year project of grueling technical and physical change. He earned that achievement through the hardest work imaginable, forcing him to fundamentally alter his game to win on courts totally unsuited for his natural movements and strokes. The incredible fact that he did it at all, let alone by 24, was a testament to his immense willpower, not some natural gift for those faster courts. Then there's Novak Djokovic, who waited until he was 29 for reasons more psychologically complex and layered than the other two combined. His technique on clay was never the problem. Anyone who watched him play knew that. He'd made the Roland Garros finals again and again, only to lose in heartbreaking ways, especially to Nadal, and in that one stunning gut punch loss to Stan Wawrinka long before he finally lifted the Paris trophy. The barrier between Djokovic and the career Grand Slam was almost entirely mental and emotional, not something technical or physical. He could go toe-to-toe with absolutely anyone on a clay court. He regularly played tennis that was more than good enough to win it all. What he couldn't do for years was bring out that ice-cold clutch version of himself that his own impossible standards demanded on the days that mattered most. His ultimate completion of the career Grand Slam in 2016 at age 29 was the climax of a profound psychological battle just as much as a sporting one. For Novak, conquering Paris wasn't about finding the last missing piece in his technical arsenal. It was the final agonizing proof that even the most demanding self-critic in sports history had at last been satisfied. All of this rich historical background is what makes Alcaraz's accomplishment in Melbourne this past February so significant. It is absolutely and completely staggering when you realize what you're actually witnessing. Completing the career Grand Slam at 22, a full 7 years younger than Djokovic and 5 years younger than Federer, is impressive in a way the age stat alone can't convey to a casual fan. The main reason he pulled this off by 22 is the very one Rick Macci highlighted in that viral post. Carlos came prepared for every single surface with no gaps in his game whatsoever. Just think about the timeline he built. He captured the US Open first on hard courts at only 19 years old. At 21, he conquered the demanding clay of Roland Garros. He demonstrated his total command on grass by winning Wimbledon at 20 and then casually did it again at 21. By the time he arrived in Australia for the 2026 Open, the only thing keeping him from the career Grand Slam was that the tournament hadn't appeared on the calendar yet. It wasn't because his hard court game had some glaring unresolved weakness he was trying to fix. He wasn't there trying to learn how to slide or adjust his footwork. He was just waiting for the schedule to align with a mastery he'd already proven to the world. That subtle but massive difference, fixing a weakness versus waiting for the calendar, is the fundamental distinction between how Carlos completed his career Grand Slam and how every legend before him did. It gets really fascinating when you look at this feat by comparing it to Djokovic, because this is where the entire conversation about future Grand Slam predictions shifts. When tennis experts debate if Alcaraz can top Djokovic's massive 24 major titles, the first objection they always raise is time. They point out that 24 is a colossal, almost mythical number built over nearly 2 decades of elite-level competition. They'll insist that a once-in-a-generation talent like Alcaraz still faces huge, unpredictable hurdles between Slam number 7 and Slam number 24. And look, that point is perfectly valid on its face. But the argument about surface adaptability cuts straight through that uncertainty, since most of the variation in Grand Slam wins for the greatest players ever came directly from weaknesses on surfaces that Alcaraz simply doesn't seem to have. Consider the math. Federer's weakness on clay probably cost him 3, 4, or maybe even 5 Grand Slams in his prime when he was physically dominant but couldn't solve the Nadal puzzle in Paris. Djokovic's mental block on clay certainly cost him several Roland Garros titles before he finally broke through in 2016. If those crushing defeats were truly missed opportunities, and if Alcaraz has zero surface weaknesses, then his baseline projection for winning Grand Slams is structurally and significantly higher than theirs was at the exact same career stage. That is not a promise. It is, however, a massive and meaningful shift of the odds in his favor, and the hard data is both clear and terrifying for his competition. Out of his 26 ATP titles, 11 have come on hard courts, 11 on clay, and 4 on grass. And let's be completely honest with one another. That lower number on grass is only because the season is so much shorter, not because of any dip in his performance there. His win rate is brutally high everywhere. He was the first active player to win majors on all 3 surface types before he had even technically completed the career Grand Slam. It's truly astounding to consider that specific progression. First came his incredible all-surface adaptability. The collection of trophies was simply an inevitable consequence. Rick Macci's assertion that Carlos's greatest surface is whichever he's playing on points to a fierce mental state just as much as his technical ability. Alcaraz doesn't arrive for the clay season obsessed with defending a reputation on a single surface. He doesn't show up at Wimbledon needing frantic, weeks-long adjustments to his core footwork and strokes. He enters every single tournament as a complete and dangerous threat, able to win on that court on any given day. This makes every Grand Slam on any surface a legitimate target for him, something not entirely true for legends at similar points in their careers. What makes this moment in the 2026 ADP calendar so thrilling is Alcaraz is entering the part of the season where his versatility gets its first major annual test. The European clay season has begun, and Roland Garros is where Alcaraz's incredible range is showcased in the most obvious and intimidating way. Paris acts as the definitive reality check for any player claiming to have an all-around game. It's the major where players without real clay skills are either out early in week 1 or limp into the second week looking depleted and worn down. But Alcaraz is already a 2-time champion there. When he is at his best on clay, his game is perhaps the most complete and frightening version of his tennis anywhere. Think of the deceptive drop shot that buckles knees, the blistering passing shots from both sides that defy physics, and the incredible endurance that red clay uniquely requires. He comes to Roland Garros this year as the 2-time defending champion, shouldering immense pressure to win again. His rankings lead over Jannik Sinner is the slimmest it's been all season, with Sinner forcing him to constantly elevate his game. The scrutiny from the media is nonstop. Still, despite all that combined pressure, he's on a surface where his resume is as strong as anyone in the field. This blend of immense pressure to defend and proven mastery of the court creates the exact environment where truly all-surface players are most reliable. I want to circle back to his age because I'm convinced it's the most overlooked detail in this entire conversation. At 22 years old, he has 7 Grand Slams spread across all 3 surfaces. Just let that sink in. At 22, Novak Djokovic held only 1 major title, while Roger Federer had 2. Rafael Nadal held 6, but keep in mind Rafa was a clay court master whose French Open wins piled up automatically from his debut. If you subtract the clay titles from Nadal's total at age 22, he only had 2 majors on the other surfaces combined. For Alcaraz to have 7 slams balanced across all 3 surfaces at that same age is a pattern literally never before seen in professional tennis. The significance of his youth goes beyond just having more years left in his career. It gives him far more years at his physical peak, where he'll enter every Grand Slam as one of the top 2 or 3 contenders to win it all. Each year, he is a clear favorite at all 4 majors, significantly boosts his total opportunities, a luxury other players who took longer to adapt never had at that stage. As both a fan and an analyst, I am convinced Carlos Alcaraz has the sheer raw potential to shatter many of the sport's greatest records. I see 18 Grand Slam titles as a conservative baseline for him, barring serious injury and assuming the competitive field remains relatively the same. That number alone would put him clearly ahead of Pete Sampras and far beyond Federer's total at a similar career point. Whether he can get past 20 or even threaten 24 depends completely on factors that are simply unknowable at this time. How long can he sustain this explosive level of athleticism? How will this intense and significant rivalry with Sinner develop over the next decade? Will a formidable new generation arrive in 5 years that can truly challenge them for major titles? Djokovic's 24 is certainly within reach for Alcaraz. The statistical path to it is clearer than for any player since Djokovic himself broke records. Now, whether it is probable is a totally different question, and any honest analysis must make that distinction. But there's one thing I am 100% certain of. The point Rick Macci made this week about his all-surface game is completely valid. It is a first in history for a player this young, and the evidence makes the Djokovic comparison more than a compliment. It's a serious debate about tennis history. Okay, everyone, I want to leave you with one final question before I turn it over to the comments. The main counterpoint here is that Djokovic's 24 majors came from a focused hard-court dominance that versatile players might not match, where deep expertise in one area beats balanced skill over a 20-year career. Do you think this all-surface skill is the ceiling raiser that Match talked about? Or is near total dominance on hard courts still the more reliable route to becoming the all-time greatest? We're now in the clay season, which serves as the first major test of this entire debate for the year. If you're here for this kind of intense and passionate tennis breakdown, then you already know the drill. Go on and hit that subscribe button right away. Leave a like on the video to give us a hand with the algorithm, and flip on those bell notifications because the coming 2 months of tennis will unleash a massive amount of drama for us to unpack together. Stay passionate, continue loving this game, and I'll catch you in the next one right here on Champions Tennis. Alcaraz possesses an endless number of admirable qualities, but if there's a single trait that shines above the rest, it's his incredible competitive drive and his ability to find a way out of the worst situations. A huge congratulations, Carlos. It was a phenomenal tournament and a remarkable couple of weeks for your coach, your family, and your entire team.